Hey, do you teach yoga? Have you ever trained to lead yoga classes, to be a yoga therapist? Have you ever owned a yoga studio? Maybe even just wondered what it was like for the women and men up there in front of the room on their mats, leading you through endless Surya Namaskars, down dogs, and pranayamas galore? Well, these are their stories, and mine. I'm Rebecca Sebastian, a 20-year yoga teacher, 10-year yoga therapist, yoga studio owner, and co-founder of a yoga-focused nonprofit. I've done a lot in the yoga world over the last 20 years. Pretty much everything except had a water cooler. You know, a place to share stories, talk about struggles, successes, and find other people who do the same thing that I do. Welcome to Working in Yoga, a podcast and substitute water cooler for yoga folks to connect and build community, to share our unique profession, our challenges, and our journeys with the world.
Hey friends, welcome to Working in Yoga. This week is part 2 of a conversation with the incredible Nana Amoako-Anin. One of my favorite things about this conversation, honestly, is that you all get to hear us become friends in real time. I think that's one of my favorite things about podcasting, that it is listening in on genuine, nourishing, intelligent conversations between people, and I really loved this one. So part 2 of this conversation will be no different than part 1. Nana and I cover confidence, pricing, and visual messaging that we send with our marketing. We also dabble in a conversation about consumer choice, which is something that's been at the top of my mind recently. For whatever reason, we've not given our customers a guide on how to find good, reputable yoga teachers. And honestly, I believe that hurts us all. So Nana and I get into that too. Now, before we begin, I want to welcome some new listeners to the podcast because I've seen a lot of the downloads and follows spike up over the recent weeks. And I want to remind you that it really does help support this work if you like, follow, or subscribe to the podcast from wherever you're listening. And don't miss out on the free month of The Back Room, where we are discussing the Trend Report TikTok in there all month of July. Now, if you haven't read it, head to my magazine and writing site, www.thesunlightexperience.com/TikTok, and check it out. Now, let's take a listen to part 2 of my conversation with Nana Amoako-Anin. Okay, so because you come from such a variety of backgrounds, how do we get paid more? Solve for X.
Yeah. I think, and I've had this many questions in the people that I mentor, yoga teachers that I mentor countlessly. I recently had as a story, recently had a wonderful yoga practitioner, Opera, who just started teaching, say that she had a client come to her to ask for private. And, I said, what did you ask her for your hourly? And the value of what she asked for was way below what we believe that she should have asked for her years of experience, for her time in the mat, for her education. It was less, just way less. And so I think the solution, and I'll ask you the question, what do you think about this? Do you think that there's a certain level of confidence that we need as practitioners to be able to claim our lives and our work? That maybe that we're even on these shores, particularly even in Ghana, that we actually are being taken advantage. And that's also a form of colonialism in many ways. And you could look at it as cultural, like on all fronts of all races and genders who are teaching yoga, that we're being taken. And I think the practitioners that really win and find careers and make it work are the ones that have a power, a self-acceptance, a self-concept that says, this is my work, this is what I'm worth, and this is what I'm asking. And I don't think we have many, and maybe of the younger practitioners and even ones who've gone on to set their rates and regretted it, but couldn't turn back. So I think confidence, self-concept, and having shadows of people like in your environment to help you see that is very important. Having something. So I did tell that practitioner, I don't believe in that. And I think you could charge 10 times that. And the person said, but you know what, you have been practicing yoga for almost 30 years and teaching for so long. And I said, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long you've been teaching. This is such important work to people, as all professions. And so I think confidence would be my answer. And how do we build that in our practitioners?
I do actually have an answer to that question of
Yeah.
how do we build that as a practitioner because I didn't come. This is very funny. So I have a 17-year-old. We have children similar ages. My
Mm.
17-year-old who worked for me when I owned a studio, he had a very
Wow.
funny experience. So he was like front desk staff for a while, and I had come to onboard a new yoga teacher. So I'd come
Mhm.
and I walked her through it. He was still there as front desk staff. I left and this new teacher comes, talks to my son, and says, "So that's your mom?" And my son went, "I know, she's the most confident person on the planet." I just, I had to laugh and go, "Are you serious?"
Mhm.
And he's like, "Yes,
Yeah.
everybody sees that in you because I sometimes don't see that in myself." But what
Mhm.
helped was I made a literal confidence log. I just started logging the things that I did that were boosts of confidence. And
Mhm.
what I found really interesting, and I'll use my confidence log because I still do it today because I have this new business, right? And I started it and I was like, who am I to do any of this? But let's see if it works. Was 2 3 weeks ago I had 25 people sign up for my launch party with 1,000 exclamation points, and I was so excited that many people signed up. And then yesterday I had a 50-minute interview with Bloomberg News about the yoga industry, and it was all the same exclamation points. And I thought, isn't that interesting? I'm equally excited about two things that are objectively
Amazing.
different.
That's amazing.
And I went, okay, the confidence of my excitement matters more than what actually happened.
Yes.
And I need to know that. I need to know that what keeps me confident is how all in I am in the work. Like I was all in on that lunch party and so thrilled that those 25 people would consider signing up for this thing that I invented in my brain.
Mhm.
As excited for that as I was that Bloomberg News called me and they were like, "Hey, we need a comment about this yoga industry thing. You seem like you know what you're doing. Can we interview you?" And I went, "Okay." But I would have never,
Mhm.
if I hadn't logged it, I wouldn't have
Mhm.
noticed it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I went, "Yep, that it still works today. I have to log the things that keep me confident because
Yeah.
it's so easy to notice the things that we didn't do right. You know, quoting that price for the person in the private. And, oh my gosh, I feel so stupid. I didn't ask enough money and I'm not valuing myself and I've conflated the value of money with the value of who I am as a person because we've sold that as an industry, that charge what you're worth phrase.
Yeah.
Like, babe, you
Yeah.
are worth magic and stardust. There is not
Yes.
enough money in the world.
Say that all the time.
But now let's talk about what your price should be. That's a different
Yeah.
conversation.
And I love, I just want to say, I want to ask you a question. I'm flipping trip.
Okay.
I love what we both came. I was wondering what your answer was going to be, but we both
Yeah.
came to the same conclusion. And you even
Yeah.
went even so more deeply on, I'm loving this knowledge that Bloomberg was again the voice that you have came to you. But the confidence that you have a confidence log.
I
I
do.
just so I'm now we're sitting on two different continents, right?
Yeah.
Having the same conversation about what it takes to survive this industry, right?
Yeah.
I love that. And I want to hear from you. We can even talk about that, but this is, I
Yeah.
think you should have another podcast. You may have already done this on pricing. I just put out a report
Yes.
on the cost of calm and how over the several years now, our studio pricing has gone from us as Bliss Yoga has been a benchmarker of establishing yoga classes or the global standard in 2013, about $25 a class. But
Yeah.
over the years, with inflation and depreciation and competitive practice of other studios, a yoga class in Ghana is now $7, right? And
Whoa.
so what does that mean when the pricing of rentals is even higher than it was
Yeah.
13 years ago? But the competitive measure of everyone wanting to outcompete each other to get those students and attention has brought us to this.
Yeah.
So it speaks to a lot of what when we're thinking about what community building looks like and pricing and
Yes.
community is can be really detrimental to the ecosystem's progress and individual people's income, which is what you were
Yes.
talking about when we talked about the question of privates and confidence, right?
Yeah. That would be what a community collective of some kind, some sort of organization that would be able to advocate for the collective, they would
Mhm.
be able to establish a bottom. Because right now, and
Mhm.
we find this all over the world, we're all racing to the bottom. We have,
Mhm.
and that's not good for anybody. We want a rising tide that lifts all ships, not
Yes.
like draining the swamp. Like, that's not what we're looking for right here. We want to lift everybody up.
Mhm.
I could go on for a very long time about both pricing and service-based pricing, pricing
Yeah.
for people who don't have access to financial resources to be able to afford what we have to give. I could probably spend 10 straight hours lecturing about that. But I'm going to tell you a story that happened this week. I do
Yes.
still see private yoga therapy clients, and I raised my rates recently to my floor is $200 an hour. And I went, I now have to tell these people who have been clients of mine, some of them since 2021, that my floor is now $200 for an hour's work.
Yeah.
And I told one of my regular clients, and she
Mhm.
had said she usually buys in bulk at $1,000 a time. And I said, well, your $1,000 goes less now than it
Yeah.
did. What
Uh-huh.
she heard me say
Uh-huh.
was, I'm charging $1,000 an hour.
Mhm.
And what
Mhm.
she answered to me was, let me get my card. She didn't even flinch. And I was like, okay, whoa, whoa,
Mhm.
whoa. Not even I think I'm worth $1,000 an hour. Thank you
Yes.
for that confidence. But
Yes.
when you say people
Wow. That's
have no
powerful.
idea how much
Powerful.
we are actually worth in our work to other people who are
Yeah.
finding impact in it, like truly, I think we have no idea. I had thought my brain had gone to the limits of how much my work would be worth in that space. And
Mhm.
she's like, I'll pay you $1,000 an hour. Okay.
I mean,
Whoa.
this is incredible what you just talked about. I mean, the fact that she heard, so you were thinking, you said my floor is $200, and I've
Yeah.
had this conversation with so many practitioners exploring what their floor is and being
Yeah.
so afraid of even getting to that number. I mean, that to them is like ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
like, how could I even ask for that? And to think that you're giving the answer to the industry that people just needed to hear, that this person heard $1,000 an hour and was ready to pay.
Yes.
So the confidence factor of also you knowing that that floor made sense to you, and not being having to say like, what's the compliance on this? What is everyone else charging? What is the market
Yeah.
charging? If we're in Ghana charging, if $150, 150, excuse me, CDs an hour is for a group yoga class, why shouldn't the studio maybe increase that to 250 or 300?
Right.
Why is there this compliant conversation when it's really about also how are people building their lives, right? But
Yes.
I think that fascinating example about really about how do we center vitamin M as practitioners? How much are we charging? How
Right.
are we navigating that? A client would be willing, and you are important to them, right? Your work is
Yes.
important to them. And it's just as important as not the same profession. I'm not scared to profess that it's the same profession as a doctor or a psychiatrist or a psychologist, um, or a life coach, or all the things that we think about when we
Sure.
think about this industrial area of healers or people who are offering care. But it's important. And I think sometimes we
Yeah.
have to argue that it's important. That's
Yeah.
also confident. We have to actually kind of defend our existence in terms of the money. We do. We have to really have that moment and let people sit with it.
Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, I
Hmm.
think yeah, there are two natural conversations that come from that. One is that idea that we are not as important as somebody who's in traditional healthcare. Traditional
Yeah.
people in traditional healthcare aren't offering what we're offering. And in
Mhm.
fact, people in traditional healthcare only have 15 minutes for you, which is the nature of the system that they built. We can comment
Yeah.
on whether that's good or bad all day long. That's kind of
Mhm.
not our problem because
Mhm.
also people, especially in the West and Western medicine, they're designed to triage. So if I have a gash on my arm, it would be ridiculous for me to go find a yoga teacher. But the amount of times where I have a gash on my arm versus a hurt in my heart are not the same.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
if somebody can come and feel better in their body and more confident in how they approach the world because they've
Mhm.
come to receive what we're offering. Yes, there is absolute value in that.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yeah, yes. And when you talk about like, yeah, the synergy between the difference between or the different lines of living between clinical practitioners and healthcare, like you said, and then the holistic practitioners
Yep.
environment or systems or ecosystems, that they're very, they're emergent. They can be, but in our current day, I believe in this conversation, in our clarity that we have and others in our communities, that we're trying to allow for us to bridge a gap now to say
Yes.
that. And I think practitioners, particularly in Ghana, and since 2013, when yoga was separate, wellness was separate, well, embodied practice was separate, and clinical care was separate. But now I've over 13 years of, surveys and inquiry forms, we're seeing that a practitioner will say, hey, my doctor told me. That's huge for Ghana. My
Totally.
doc, as early as 10 years ago, I started to pick up these cues and would like to write on the research. My doctor told me that I needed to come and find you or explore yoga teachers in Ghana or yoga wellness practitioners
Yes.
to see how it can help me in my health.
Before we keep going, I want to tell you about something I built because it didn't exist and it should have. Inside Yoga Magazine is a trade magazine for yoga professionals, not a wellness lifestyle blog, not a beginner's guide to down dog, a trade magazine, the kind that treats our work as the legitimate profession it actually is. It's digital, it's ours, and it's the first of its kind. If you've ever picked up a trade publication in literally any other industry and thought, why doesn't yoga have this? Well, now it does. You can find it at insideyogamagazine.com. The link is in the show notes.
Right?
Yes.
So how are we bridging that? So yeah, to your point, yeah, there is this kind of fine line all over the world. As US is an example where, yeah, there's a clinical side and then there's the holistic side. But in this new emergence post-COVID, we're seeing a lot more, and you're seeing a lot of gurus online, whether they're credible or not,
Yes.
doctors as well who are licensed and certified talking about holistic practice and bringing it into their portfolio to
Yes.
attract the attention or into their
Yeah.
work.
I have a lot to say about that because I mean, one of the
Yes.
things that I think is our job that we have fallen down on universally, worldwide, is customer education. We haven't taught consumers how to
Hmm.
pick ethical, responsible teachers. The
Yes.
way that one piece, and I'm actually writing a book about it right now because I feel so strongly like that
Yeah.
one piece of consumer
Hmm.
education of us to be able to say, because there aren't reliable credentials for you to say
Yeah.
this person's qualified because they hold X piece of paper or trained with Y person,
Hmm.
means
Hmm.
that they have to do more consumer research, and we've
Hmm.
not trained them how to do that. We have not
Yes.
given them a path to say, to the teacher in front of them, what does your personal practice look like? How long have you been teaching? Do you embody this practice so that you
Yes.
can share it with other people? Or are you doing this to get a free gym membership? Which, no
Hmm.
shame, but those two teachers are different people. And maybe somebody as a consumer wants to come and just go to the gym and do some stretchy practices. Great, you find that person. There is a lane in a market for them. But there's also a lane in a market for other people who are teaching the full spectrum of yoga. And we have
Hmm.
not taught consumers how to find the difference between those two. Well, sorry, I got ranty. I apologize. But I feel really
Yes.
strongly
No,
like this is a piece we're missing.
yes, and we are, I think consistently, and I'll just look at the context of being in Ghana, that, how are people finding us? So, and to your point about consumer education, the consumer has no way. And so sometimes they're just accidentally falling into our
Yes.
laps, you know.
Yes.
I know when people contact the studio, a lot of times it's like, how did we ask or somebody working will say, how did you find us? So, oh, a Google search, and I just saw yoga. And I just dialed it and then you
Yeah.
answered. And I was so surprised, or somebody else answered by all the other elements. And I'm not diminishing what the face of the verbiage of this is yoga, but I think that you're right. The consumer is confused, I think a lot, and
Yes.
is just picking at a theme. And then when they pick at a theme that they can't filter, they might be getting bad service, or they might be getting poor care, or they might be in danger because
Yeah.
whoever they fell into fit a certain profile of what they're looking for, which is subjective. But the
Yeah.
actual, I think the technical side of practitioner skill is really within getting to be able to know who you're working with. And I think you're
Yes.
right. How are we screening for that? How are we helping people understand that, and even in the US, as you can see, I think now the influencer in this attention economy, I mean, my goodness,
Totally.
I open the
Yes.
internet and I want to close the internet because it's like I see so much influence. A lot of people I find they're out there, they're really inspiring. But then I'm also like really confused and disappointed that I see people that are being platformed and like either making a lot of money or have big audiences that really don't speak to the work, right? And
Yes.
it's very confusing for people to make judgments about who and for the honest, I sit here, as a in my gypsy self, to the honest people out there who are doing really good. And I don't even like to say the word the work because that also can be like
Yeah.
very triggering. But for the very honest people who are activating and advocating, what happens to them, But I think we're
Yeah.
now emerging that cycle of, amazing people is now coming back to the surface because we're now looking for, and I won't use the word authenticity because that also has been played down, but
So
we're now
played. Yeah. Yeah.
looking for people who are fully embodied in their work, fully, honestly
Yes.
trustful, and pure, right?
Yeah.
Purely alive in their magic. So it's happening. We're seeing
Yeah.
it. We're seeing
I
it.
can't imagine, as a person who's been also practicing 30 years, I
Mhm.
can't imagine coming into the practice today and
Mhm.
having to sort through whatever it is that yoga is on social media. The,
Mhm.
it's somewhere between white woman wellness content and shock marketing is it's those two things almost in totality that covers almost everyone of like I'm going to say something so scandalous that you
Mhm.
think that
Yes,
I have the truth because I've
authority,
said something
authority.
shocking or
Yes.
something that hurts people's feelings because
Mhm.
I must be telling the truth because I've said a thing that hurts people's feelings or something
Mhm.
that is like so gentle and bikinis on the beach yoga that I don't know. I probably wouldn't be a yoga practitioner if I'm truly honest. Like, I
Yes.
would go do something
Mhm.
else.
Yes. And I mean, that's a huge moment. I think from my perspective, somebody who was teaching some in New York, moved to Ghana, is from Ghana, is again an African woman. And then when you talk about what yoga looks like on your context of what our newer practitioners are seeing,
Yeah.
it's interesting you said that, generally if they open the internet, they're going to see generally maybe a white-centered
Yes.
female practice. I think that also visual, I think thankfully in the United States, for those that we're looking at influentially, diversity has started and
Yes.
continues, and not even started, is building. So we do see visions of diversity in wellness now in America, which I
Yes.
think is amazing. When we move that as a great opportunity, but when we think about Africa, we're still actually twinning in some ways in what you talked about the visual of
Yeah.
what we see when we open the internet. I mean, I've said this before to my community. I did some research. I think I need to write a book about this and publish a book about the visual culture of what wellness looks like in Africa. If you Google yoga in Africa, you likely, I've said this, will see pictures of women in Sweden. They'll like feed it to you. And AI will just offer you pictures of women in Sweden doing yoga, offer you images of women in other countries, in Australia, blonde women, women from other
Yes.
European countries, Asia. And it's almost like how are we even we think about the context of if we open the internet, how are we repopulating that considerably acceptable framework? Because those newer to yoga are just thinking about yoga. But if you
Yeah.
think about being in context on the continent of Africa, we do not even have to start. We should have been questioning what's flooding our systems, right? What the pace of that looks like because of the historical value of being on the continent. So I look at myself as an image and as example of what people should see, right? That's what naturally we should assume we should see. that is acceptable for all, but in the culture of wellness. So that just brought up something in me around how we're seeing ourselves, how people are visualizing us in Africa, on the continent, and we're going to be very narrow in Ghana.
And I want to
Mhm.
say your first entry in your confidence log has to be how good of a job you do at that. Because I watch you, I watch yoga all over the world,
Yeah.
and I watch you, and how you visually represent yoga from Ghana is incredible. It's just what I want to see. It's like, I'm always like, oh, it's just so perfect. Like, it's just exactly the full representation of the full spectrum of a human being that would come into a yoga space. Yes, please,
Yeah.
and thank you, more of that. So quick break to tell you about The Back Room, my Patreon community for yoga and wellness professionals. Here's what it actually is. Every week, you get a focus prompt, reflection sheets, and a shared working rhythm that you can drop into on your own schedule. There's no live calls, no required check ins, no one telling you to hustle harder. There's a quarterly book club and access to a growing archive of guides and reflections, all connected to this work that we do on the show. It's built for people who want to think more clearly about their careers without the noise of social media and public discourse. It's $8 a month, and there's a free tier if you want to try it first. Find it at thesunlightexperience.com/the backroom, and the link is in the show notes. So I hope you give yourself credit because I feel like it's an intentional thing that you've done.
Yes, thank you. It is very intentional. And also with AI, we also see a lot of the marketing. And then maybe you also think about that. I don't know if it's as more centralized in the US anymore, but a lot of marketing, people are using AI imagery to build
Yes.
marketing profiles, to build workshop like flyers. I think that's really wonderful. And granted, a lot of our newer practitioners, I think it's helpful to be using technology,
Yes.
but then the visual also changes everything. Because even if you're doing presenting something that's in Ghana, AI could be pulling something from Mozambique or pulling something from South
Yeah.
Africa. And those identities are very different,
Yes.
beautifully culturally prominent and amazing, but it is a different context. So we have to be very
Mm.
careful how we present. And will continue to advocate to say, show yourself, right? Show yourselves. And that's everyone though, inclusive. It's
Yeah.
still inclusive, it's
Yeah.
still accessible, but show yourselves. And it also offers people the real heart of what you do when you show
Yeah.
yourself, right?
Okay, so riddle me this. Now that we're on marketing a little bit,
Yes,
and
yes.
I think when I look at my marketing and how I show up online, I, in the last year, have consciously made the choice to make sure that people know that I am not AI. My words are not AI. They're from me. That it's just me in my office, with the, I don't even have a box light. Like, that's intentional choices to make sure that people know that it is me and not AI. And I think we have to consciously market that way in an industry where, for lack of a better word, authenticity and embodiment
Mhm,
is key to what we offer. Do you
mhm.
have thoughts about that? Because I
Yeah,
think
I
about it all
do.
the
I
time.
think Yeah, I think what you just said about it was going back to a question we didn't even answer yet about creativity and innovation,
Yeah.
creativity in business. And um it's beautiful now that AI exists, but the danger is that the heart of what we're talking about, like you said, I'm writing a book, right?
Yep.
I'm sitting down to prepare and plan and outline and go for it, and it's going to be me. But now it's become more easeful to even share your healing dimensions, your healing mantras, what you believe in through AI. You can ask AI to
Yeah.
tell the world how you think. And in that dimension, that's superly powerful, but also it gives a lot of people who maybe don't even have ideas, a lot of power to influence their communities, to build communities around maybe ideas that they don't even believe in. And so it's like sort of
Yeah.
like manufacturing advocacy. And we've been advocates for a long time. The work you're doing as a yoga practitioner, as a yoga therapist, as an entrepreneur, myself as an entrepreneur of other really fantastic business flows and ideas that we're still trying to be creative in our businesses, in our
Yes.
innovation, in our ideas. Have a pen, right? Have a notepad and write it down. So I think it's a dangerous time we're in.
Yes.
But I'll say to you, so when I look at your work, I can see that it's you, right? I
Yeah.
can see that you're writing from yourself and that we can all see that in everyone else. You can feel it, right?
Yeah.
We hope, and I hope, my hope for the younger practitioner, no matter if it's a yoga practitioner or where your process is that you will stick with yourself.
Yeah.
You will write down ideas and you will say, I want to share this with people. And and also to your comment about that, the the view of talking about things that are really sensationalized, that we just want to get out there and be like, everyone out there, I want to tell you this so that we can go
Yeah.
viral. And sometimes it's from the heart too, right? But really right now our voice should be about our own, like really
Yeah.
be patient and sit in your room alone and have that hour with yourself. And hey, those ideas, and maybe generate them in a certain way to get it out there quickly or faster. But stay with yourself, So that's
Yeah.
what I would say about that.
I feel like we train for this though. Isn't that like aren't we students first? My hope is we're students first. And so I've been
Mhm.
a student of this long enough that I don't know how to show up any other way, but I've worked so hard to
Mhm.
really see and embrace me that I
Mhm.
don't understand why I would then want an AI to write the AI version of me. Like I feel like that was my childhood. My childhood already was the
Yes.
AI version of me where I was like,
Yes.
the best possible like presenting person. Like
Mhm.
now I get to be the whole of myself and I'm supposed to let a computer do that for me. I have a hard
Yes.
time with that, especially in the yoga space. Like we train for
Yes.
this.
Yes, we did. And it's hard to watch the fast nature of how people want to sign to it or sign up for it and go faster. But I think a lot of times our industry, our newer entrants into these industries, they're at day one, but they want to be at year 10. And
Yes.
now the internet and AI has allowed you to go from literally, you said we were trained for this. Imagine your years before AI, the 25, 28 years or 25
Yeah.
years, 5 years, it really started becoming, but you were building your own identity outside of
Yeah.
these structures. And now we have a point where somebody could build a website in a minute, could write a speech for, a commencement speech in 2 seconds by just putting their profile in. And it's beautiful. But what does that say about folks who really were intuitive about like building their library, their self-library? That's
Yeah.
hard. That's hard.
I mean, there's a beauty in the discomfort of it because I think anybody who has built something without that tool knows that there is such an awkward discomfort at the beginning when you're finding your footing. And
Mhm.
I sort of purposely embrace that with this magazine because like I just made it up. Like I'm just and there's like a you all are going to witness me going through all of the beginning stages of the thing in real time
Mhm.
because we have to embrace the discomfort of not having the brand quite right yet or the voice quite right yet or like all of those things are so wildly uncomfortable and you just have to do it like you just have to.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, I think maybe a question for you is also like, how do you navigate your this I call it, I'll use the term very beautifully, this antique intelligence, like how do you navigate wanting to be so bare and say like, yeah, I'm just going to stay with nature of things. I'm going to stay with my thoughts. I'm going to stay with my notebook. I'm going to stay to see how modernized the industry is. And
Yeah.
then also in your work, as you think about some of the broken edges that you're hoping to be suggestive about how we can further them, like how do you navigate that push to go fast? And maybe the push is like we need to slow down so we can have these
Yeah.
conversations, right?
I think for me, and I'll own this is a natural privilege of mine that can be
Mhm.
cultivated if you don't have it naturally, is that my risk tolerance and tolerance for discomfort is higher than other people's. And that
Mhm.
is whether you can say that was hard won through a challenging childhood or something that was innately given to me on the day of my birth. Whatever that magic concoction is, I have a
Mhm.
super high threshold for risk.
Yeah.
So if I put my whole self out there and somebody doesn't like it, fine. Like it
Mhm.
hurts, of course. Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say I'm immune. Like I don't buy the people who are just like, oh, I just don't care if somebody doesn't like me. We all care. I
Mhm.
care. But my threshold for that risk and discomfort is high naturally.
Yes.
And I think that that is something that can be built, but has to be intentionally built. Like you just have to, like if you're a person listening who's listening, going, how do I do that? You take strategic risks and then like build that confidence log simultaneously, to sort of push that risk threshold. Because once you become a person, and I feel like you could speak to this too, because you've done many things, is that once you become a person that does things, you're just a person that does things. And
Yeah.
someone hands you a new project and you're like, well, I can do that. I've done 1,000 other things, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And maybe you speak to the point about as we think about the nuance of the career of yoga or the career of wellness, is that we have to become more flexible and like
Yeah.
also do, like you said, I do many things. I think that that's part of the new future of being in the space. The how do you, if you want to stay, how are you,
Yeah.
what are you building? And that's difficult too for people to be after the structures that we talked about it. Like before, you could be individualistic, you could have the studio and have the 15-year loan and like all this industry just coming at you, the yoga industry, particularly in the US, right? In the
Yep.
2010s. Wow. I
Yep.
mean, good studios, the studio I would go to had like 300 people in there a day. I
Yeah.
mean, wow. And
Yeah.
then teacher trainings with like 60 people in them for one
Holy
cycle with
smokes.
like, right? Like you're right. That was, and now it's different. And now
Yeah.
it's, I think, a different system that doesn't support that flow or that arrangement. And maybe that's for good. And maybe that
Yeah.
isn't, some people would say, but it's different how you think about what you said about I have my confidence log and I have a risk tolerance that's like I have a really good one and I just keep right?
Yes.
And many people also who become practitioners aren't prepared for this. Nobody tells
Yes.
them that,
Yes.
nobody anchors them. People just say, just come in, learn the structure, learn the poses, learn the dynamics. But then you're honestly there and you've also it's an identity that you give up other identities to do this work. And then you're in the
Yes.
identity. And how do
Yeah.
you navigate other people seeing you as a multidimensional person that could make life and income in other ways without being like, well, that's weird. Aren't you just,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh, that's a whole other podcast, that identity piece of it.
Other
Oh,
podcast. Yeah.
oh. I feel like we could go on for a
Mhm.
long time. But in the
Yes.
meantime, I want to make
Mhm.
sure that you tell people how to find you so they can go follow your beautiful work.
Yes. Well, you can find, of course, if you just Google the studio, which is Bliss Yoga Accra, so Bliss, BLISS, Yoga Accra, you'll find the website. You probably see me pop up there on the internet. I am also Nana Amoako-Anin. So as this podcast goes out, if you search me, my website is there. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find my work, my research, my writing. You can find a lot of information online. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful relationship with
I'm
with
obsessed.
your work as a subscriber. I'm excited about this whole publication and continuing to read and be part and take part. So yeah, that's how you can find me. My name in the internet, bring everything up in the studio in the internet too. You can find me and the team very easily. Mhm.
Okay. Thank you so much for this podcast. It's going to be 2 episodes. I'm so excited for people to hear it. Thank you
Yes.
so much for this.
Thank you so much.
Okay, this was such an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for having it with me, Nana. Next week's interview is an update of one of my revisited conversations from June with Leslie Perlman. Leslie runs Good Ground Yoga and does one of the most skillful teacher training programs that I have ever seen. She and I update our conversation from a few years ago. And if you missed it, I reran that episode earlier in June. So scroll back just a little bit and take a listen. Until then, let's go get to work, my friends, and I will catch you around the water cooler next time.